This is the story of a man who looked so deeply into the human soul that the very depth almost destroyed him. Yet in that descent he uncovered a truth we spend our whole lives trying not to see. To understand Jung's darkest truth, you have to walk beside him, into the abyss, into the roots of the psyche, into the shadowed halls of the collective unconscious. But first you must know this: he didn't go down there to escape. He went down to face what he had been running from. And now, if you're truly ready for this journey, stay until the end, because what you're about to hear isn't just Jung's darkness. It's a mirror held up to the parts of you you've been avoiding for years. And once you look into that mirror, nothing will ever feel the same again. Carl Gustav Jung was not just a psychiatrist. He was something else entirely, a seeker of the soul's language. In Freud's kingdom there was once an heir, Jung, the rising star of early psychoanalysis, the golden child in the eyes of the scientific world. But inside him lived a quiet restlessness, not anxiety but a summons from the depths. Freud believed that all psychological struggle came from repressed sexuality. But Jung felt something older, something deeper than the personal unconscious, something archetypal. He began noticing patterns in his patients' dreams, faces of forgotten gods, symbols from cultures they had never studied, visions from myths they had never read. And gradually he understood. None of it was random. These images were timeless, universal. It was as if buried at the bottom of the human mind was a shared layer of memory, not born from an individual life, but from the history of an entire species. Jung called it the collective unconscious, and naming it became the first step toward his exile. Like every heretic, he was pushed outside the gates. After breaking with Freud, Jung entered what he called his confrontation with the unconscious. For years he walked at the edge of madness. He dreamt of oceans of blood, floods swallowing cities, gods with burning eyes. He wrote in red and black ink. He drew mandalas in moments of despair. And sometimes he heard voices that were not his own. Am I going mad? He wondered. Or am I finally waking up to something real? This wasn't psychosis. It was a voluntary descent, a conscious dive into the unconscious to see what lived there. And what Jung found wasn't just personal trauma. It was an ancient architecture, a mythic web of symbols and archetypes that had appeared in every culture, in every era, throughout human history. He met the shadow, the rejected buried self. He encountered anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine. He crossed paths with the trickster, the wise old man, the mother, the hero, not as metaphors but as psychological realities etched deep into the human mind. He realized something profound. Our dreams, our myths, our religions all draw water from the same hidden well. That well is the collective unconscious. So what is the collective unconscious? Imagine the mind as a vast ocean. Your conscious thoughts are the surface, the thin layer lit by the sun. Beneath it lies your personal unconscious, forgotten memories, buried wounds, repressed desires. But deeper still, in a place almost impossible to reach, lies the collective unconscious, a psychic layer you did not create, but inherited, a spiritual blueprint passed down through generations, the ancestral memory of humankind. You've never seen a dragon, yet you fear it. You've never spoken to a wise old sage, yet he appears in your dreams when you're lost. You don't remember ancient myths, yet your soul seems to. The collective unconscious explains why unfamiliar stories feel familiar, why symbols move us before we can explain them, why a spiral, a serpent, or a cross can awaken awe or terror. We are not as separate as we believe. Your mind is not only your own, you are the continuation of every mind that came before you. Here lies the darkest truth, the part most people never fully grasp. The collective unconscious doesn't hold only light, it holds our collective shadow. Not just your shame, but the shame of an entire species. War, genocide, betrayal, abuse, cruelty, fear of the other, hunger for power. These forces aren't just out there. They are within us, carved into the blueprint of human nature. To Jung, denying this truth was the beginning of both personal and societal madness. Because until the unconscious becomes conscious, you don't direct your life, it directs you, and you call it fate. Every prejudice, every irrational fear, every pattern you keep repeating but can't explain may not even belong to your life. It may be ancient, inherited, collective. This is Jung's darkest truth. You are haunted not only by your past, but by humanity's past. And if you refuse to face it, you become its next vessel. Each of us carries a myth, a silent narrative we live without knowing. Some walk the hero's path seeking meaning. Some live the story of Narcissus, trapped in their reflection. Some become the victim, the outcast, the king, the witch, the fool. These aren't literary tropes. These are psychological scripts, archetypes that shape your behavior, emotions, and choices, without asking your permission. The collective unconscious is the stage. The archetypes are the roles, and the ego is merely the actor who believes it's writing the play. But the real author lies much deeper. Jung didn't descend into the abyss to drown. He went there to return with knowledge, and what he found is what most of us spend our lives avoiding. Healing is not the removal of darkness. It is the ability to sit with it without collapsing, because the shadow doesn't disappear when ignored. It grows, it distorts, it reflects itself back to you through other people. But when you face it, a quiet truth emerges: power, clarity, wholeness. In Jung's own words, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. He called this individuation. The lifelong movement toward your true self, a merging of the unconscious with the conscious, not erasing what's buried, bringing it into awareness. It is a spiritual path, a psychological path, and a mythological path. And it begins with a terrifying truth. You are not one thing. You are many, many selves hidden behind one face. To reach these hidden selves, Jung turned to dreams. To him, dreams were not wish fulfillments, but messages, symbols that bypass the ego to warn, guide, and reveal. He spent years decoding his own dreams, drawing mandalas, studying every symbol that surfaced. He believed that every person's dream world speaks the language of archetypes, and that if you learn this language, you can finally converse with your unconscious. In dreams, your soul tells you what you refuse to hear while awake. The abandoned house, the wounded child, the faceless man chasing you through fog. These are not fiction, they are messages. Jung once said, "Dreams are the guiding words of the soul. To ignore them is to silence your inner compass." Yet we live in a culture that has severed itself from its own soul. We are trained to ignore our dreams, suppress our emotions, numb our anxieties, and scroll endlessly to escape ourselves. We analyze everything and understand nothing. We call myths primitive, symbols superstition, and the unconscious irrelevant, then wonder why we repeat the same cycles of suffering, individually and collectively. We laugh at the gods of the past, but maybe they never left. Maybe they walk among us with new names hidden inside modern technologies. Maybe the collective unconscious didn't vanish. It was simply buried under the noise of modern life. And maybe that's why we feel so empty, so disconnected, so painfully incomplete. Jung believed that to save ourselves, we must return to something older than modernity, not to regress, but to reclaim the symbolic mind, to realize your anxiety isn't just chemical. It might be the hero resisting the call. To realize your depression isn't just biological. It might be the death of the ego before the soul is reborn. To see that your confusion isn't madness, but the trickster shaking you awake. In myth, you are never broken. You are always in the middle of a transformation. That's why Jung valued alchemy, mythology, and religion, not as literal truths, but as maps of the unconscious. They show the terrain. They help us survive the darkness. They help us gather the pieces we lost. Jung died in 1961, but his ideas never did. They live in therapy, in literature, in art, and quietly in the dreams we pretend not to remember. Star Wars, The Matrix, Fight Club, Inception, Joker. These are not just movies, they are modern myths echoing ancient truths. And Jung's greatest warning? Darkness is not dangerous. Pretending it doesn't exist is. To face the abyss is not to fall into madness, it is to take the first step toward healing. So where does this leave you? Ask yourself, why do certain images follow me? Why do I repeat the same patterns? Why do I feel older than my own life? If any of these questions touched you, write even a single word below. It might be the moment your journey becomes visible. The answers may not lie in logic, they may lie deeper, in the collective past beneath your skin. Jung once walked into the abyss and returned with a gift, a mirror, not to show you who you are but who you could become. If only you have the courage to look. Your vision becomes clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakens? If this journey stirred something inside you, don't leave the mirror in this video. Understanding yourself isn't a single moment. It's a slow, layered awakening. So, if you're ready for the next step, stay with me. Subscribe. There are more doors for us to open together.